Hi there, my name is Kay Moon and I'm a twin flame channel and Western astrologer. And this will be a video about the Aries-Libra Eclipse Cycle taking place over the course of 2023 and 2024 for the Lightworker Collective. This particular eclipse cycle is an interesting one. I'm going to provide precise dates and exact times in the Eastern time zone, the United States Eastern time zone. So if you don't happen to live there, all dates will be linked below this video along with times and a link to a time zone converter so you can check for your local time. Okay. As well as the resources I used, including this table of eclipse dates from astrologer Susan Miller. Thank you, Susan, for putting this wonderful table together. All right, so I want to start off by giving you a general overview of the eclipse cycle. This eclipse cycle that began here in 2023. Let's see if I can make this bigger for you guys. If you happen to be following along on video. There we go. This particular eclipse cycle began on April 19th of 2023 with a solar eclipse in the sign of Aries. We also have the following one coming on October 14th at the 21st degree of Libra here. And that's also a solar eclipse. Then we have a lunar eclipse, which is a closing energy on March 24th of 2024 at the 5th degree of Libra. Then we go back to solar eclipse energy with a solar eclipse on April 18th at the 19th degree of Aries and a solar eclipse on October 2nd of 2024 with a solar eclipse at the 10th degree of Libra. Now, there's a few things that really stand out right away as we are looking at this. The first is that on the Aries-Libra eclipse axis, the majority of eclipses out of the 5 of them are going to be solar eclipses. And so solar eclipses are what my teacher Nadia Shah says are basically new moons on steroids. They open new beginnings, new chapters in a major way in our lives. Eclipses tend to be hand of the divine or divine intervention, intentionally moving our lives outside of our control in a direction that it's meant to go in. They can be leveraged for alignment when we are intentionally working with their energy and creating opportunities when we're intentionally working with their energy as well. So what's interesting as well, of the 5 eclipses as well, that 4 of them are solar. The one lunar eclipse we have happens to be in the sign of Libra. And Aries and Libra are our relationship axis. Aries represents the sign of the self. Libra represents our relationship with partners who are our equal. So this could be business partners or spouses. Partnerships in this case does not necessarily mean friendships. That's a different sign. We're not talking about bosses. In the world of relationships or employees, that's a different sign. We're not talking about family. That's a different sign. With Aries and Libra, the kind of relationships we're specifically talking about are either romantic relationships or business partnerships. And so this cycle will be very significant for both of those. All right. We've got the North Node during this cycle, and the North Node points to the direction of growth for all of us. During this cycle, the North Node will be passing through the sign of Aries. The South Node, which represents the things that we're leaving behind will be passing through the sign of Libra. With the North Node in Aries, the call upon all of our lives is leaning into personal growth, our personal ambition, our authenticity, leaning into action. I've always liked to say that our ambition is where our soul meets our ego and tells us how far we can go in this lifetime. Because ego is not necessarily a bad thing. It's the thing that keeps us housed, fed. It's the thing that keeps us clothed. The ego is what allows us to interface with the third dimension. And so, where our spirit meets our soul and tells us how far we can go in this lifetime, that's what ambition is. It's the thing that we feel like we can live up to when we are really living our best self and who we really are. And Aries specifically deals with our personal ambitions for ourself. Libra, on the other hand, deals with our collaborations, our partnerships, our capacity to play fairly, justly, and to move in balance with our fellow humans here on Earth, to work in collaboration, to work in partnership and in tandem, making sure that our fellow humans get exactly what we're getting. No one's getting more, no one's getting less. Libra deals specifically with those themes around that fairness and that justice in partnership and collaboration. And so, on the one hand, in the shadow, we could say that this season will really move a lot of people in their ego. But on the other hand, and ego, again, not being a bad thing, we can always get too much ego, but we can also get too much spirit. Some people can go too far in the direction of over spiritualizing things and not living in the third dimension. So both have their light and their shadow, but with Aries, we're specifically dealing with our kind of third dimensional personality, its individuality, its individual ambition. And we're looking at a restructuring of a lot of our partnerships through this eclipse cycle, especially because the only closing eclipse in the Aries-Libra cycle happens to be in the sign of partnership. It's not in the sign of individuals. So as we're moving into becoming more of ourselves, more of who we are, more authentic, more real, more standing in our uniqueness, all of that is Aries, where the North Node is passing. And that's the direction of growth. By design, our relationships are going to have to change. If we are a puzzle piece that looks like this, some of you who have been in private session with me have seen a drawing like this. If we're a puzzle piece that looks like that, but we're transforming through the course of this cycle to a puzzle piece that looks like this, by design, the very nature of the pieces that connect to us are going to have to be different. We fit in a different place on the puzzle. Therefore, our partnerships will also reconfigure as part of this process. Okay. So, wanted to make sure I laid that out as kind of an overview and an understanding. Many of you are experiencing lots of changes in relationship. Some of the other types of relationship as well, friendships, family, etc. But certainly romantically, there's a bit of a changing of the guard, changing of the scene going on, and we're going to talk about some of that through this eclipse cycle. This is also important to note that it's a cardinal eclipse cycle. So Aries and Libra are two of our cardinal signs. Cancer and Capricorn are the other two. Cardinal signs specifically deal with the way we respond to whatever life throws at us. And cardinal signs respond through the energy of initiation, taking action, facilitating new beginnings. There's no wait and see with cardinal signs. There's no, well, you take an action and then I'll respond. Cardinal signs just act. And so we'll find with these eclipses, especially because as I looked at the cycle, I saw Mars in water signs for the majority of the eclipses. And Mars is the ruling sign of the North Node, which is in Aries. We're going to be moving pretty instinctively and acting from an emotional place with a lot of this. That can be good. It can also provide certain challenges, and we'll talk about that as we go. So it's important to understand that the energy here is really about stepping up, taking action. Aries is a sign of action, and that's where the North Node is for this eclipse cycle. And it's also about really honoring where we are personally at in the actions that we're taking, really putting yourself first. As the, flight attendants say, put your own oxygen mask on first. Okay. So let's see, anything else that I wanted to say about the overview. Out of these eclipses, there are several of them that are connected to the South Node more than anything else. And I'll show you that in a minute. We're going to go through each eclipse. Of these eclipses, several of them are connected to the South Node. And in conjunction with the South Node, we're going to be dealing with a lot of themes from our past, either who we used to be, who we used to date, our patterns in relationship from the past, or the type of relationship maybe we used to be attracted to as we're becoming these newly shaped puzzle pieces through this process. You're going to find that there's a little bit of like a revisitation, some nostalgia, some even erasing and creating neutrality in relationship to our pasts and our past partnerships that will be required as we go through this process. All in all, because most of this is solar eclipses, except for one on this eclipse axis, what we're specifically looking at is a new relationship cycle opening up. Okay. So let's get into this. We're going to start with the very first eclipse, and there will be some timestamps below if I can remember to get to it. But if anybody wants to timestamp each of these eclipses, that would be amazing. Let's get into the first one. We've experienced this one by the time of this recording. This is the solar eclipse in Aries, taking place on April 20th of 2023. Let me just correct the color there. And that is at 12:12 a.m. If you happen to be on the eastern seaboard of the United States, date and a time zone converter will be below this video in the description box. So this particular solar eclipse, and you can see it took place on a new moon. They all do when it's a solar eclipse. It coincides with the new moon. Was conjunct Jupiter, square Pluto. So here's Jupiter squaring Pluto, and sextile Saturn. Let's pull that out. Sextiling Saturn, squaring Pallas. So we have what we as astrologers consider a T-square here. And we have a conjunction to the North Node, which is not highly featured. So this is a really important one as an opening one to the cycle. And we have a conjunction here to Vesta. With this combination, this particular solar eclipse as the kickoff was significant because all the planets were direct. Pluto was the loudest planet speaking to the solar eclipse, and Pluto represents the resurrection cycle. So a death, an ending, and a rebirth. It's the process of moving through closing out and beginning again. With Pluto's endings, it's very unlike, some of the other endings like Saturn, Neptune, or Uranus endings. Plutonian endings tend to be pretty permanent. When things do go into the rebirth process of the cycle, they tend to look nothing like what they look like before. Plutonian endings are the process of caterpillar to butterfly, for example. The caterpillar does indeed die. What's reborn is the butterfly, but it looks nothing like the caterpillar. That's the type of state change that a Plutonian ending brings to the table. And so, because this solar eclipse, which represents new beginnings, the loudest planetary influence on it is a square, an aspect of tension from the planet that deals with the resurrection cycle. This puts us on notice and tells us thematically we're going to be dealing with crossroads, new beginnings, choices, timeline changes where we can close out one timeline, open up another timeline, completions of a very permanent nature, and specifically when it has to do with our selfhood, our identity, who we used to be, and who we are becoming in the sign of Aries, since Aries specifically deals with our identity. Pluto at this time was retrograde square the nodal axis, and both of the two starter eclipses featured this. Anytime we have a retrograde squaring planet to the transiting nodal axis, collectively we are experiencing an opportunity for a timeline jump. We are experiencing a crossroads collectively where decisions are required, where we are forced during a season like this to get clear about what we want, what we don't want, and to close out access to what we don't want, continuing to touch our lives. It's a choiceful season. So it's very important that you're intentional with your time, with your money, with your energy, so that you are actively investing or facing the direction you want to go. With a choice point season like this, if you're, let's just say what you really want is to, I don't know, sail across the world. But anytime your friends call you up to hang out, you say yes. None of them are sailors. None of them own boats. None of them are actively trying to sail or own boats or going to sailing school. You know how to sail, but you're not investing any of your time, money, and energy into that. This is one of those seasons where if you want X, but you are doing Y, you are going to find that you're going to run into some walls. And it's very important to understand how important alignment is with Pluto in the mix. Because these planets that God built, like they are here to help us, they are here to support us. All of this works for our benefit when we are not working against ourselves. And so the honesty in this, because Aries is a sign that specifically deals with that authenticity, that congruence, that ambition, like let me place my feet in the direction of my mind, not have them going in two separate directions, that forward projecting movement of Aries. We're going to see that the rest of the planets will really honor that if we are honoring that. And so this solar eclipse really put us on notice around, hey, where you're headed is where your feet are pointed. Make sure your feet are pointed where you want to go. So strong fire energy during this particular eclipse. Fire energy represents the realm of the spirit. It's also taking action and form as well. We also have definitely some timelines opening and closing in the arena of relationship, specifically, but mostly within ourselves. Some recognition like, wow, I'm different. I'm in a new season. I'm in a new chapter. I'm a new me. Do we even still fit? I don't know. Some of that could have come up. Okay. With the T squaring energy, Pallas here is providing a lot of self protective instincts, self protective motivations from Cancer, really honing in on our emotional truths and being willing to stand in those truths during this time. With there being no occupying energy except for a sensitive point opposite this new moon. This particular new moon and solar eclipse took place pretty much in Taurus. It's the tail end of the Taurus Scorpio eclipse cycle. The activating energy that allows us to balance the T squares tension is the beginning of Scorpio, which is all about completions, and the tail end of Libra. That tail end of Libra is about partnership. So this particular solar eclipse would have been the beginning of closing out partnerships that are no longer aligned for us, simply because we may have outgrown them. We're just different people now. Also would have been the beginning of closing out cycles and seasons where we may have been unfair to ourselves in partnership. Okay. It marked a real turning point, I would say, in our season of manifestation. So if you joined me during the beginning of 2023, you knew each lunation had a continuous build of strong manifestation themes that began to complete right as we moved into May of 2023. And this solar eclipse was really what would have solidified a lot of what we wanted to manifest. It would have solidified it in conception, even if it wasn't birthed yet. Consider that before you see a baby, the baby is conceived. It's not visible to the eye, but it is definitely already here. It's growing in the mom's womb. And so all of this season of manifestation that we had in the first 5 months of 2023, this would have been a finale moment that allowed us to have, like, the conception is here. We are pregnant with the thing it is we're trying to birth, that kind of thing. Okay. So that's kind of the vibe for that first solar eclipse there. Would have really brought a lot of new energy in. A new way of being yourself may have opened up here. Some of you may have really recognized there are some things about you that changed during this season, this solar eclipse, and that you just can't go back to who you were. It's not possible. That version of you isn't accessible any longer. Okay. So let's go ahead and take a look at the next one in the cycle. That is going to be our solar eclipse on October 14th, 2023 at the 21st degree of Libra. So let's pull that chart out. This solar eclipse takes place at 2 p.m. if you happen to be on the eastern seaboard of the United States. If not, check your time zone converter for your local time. Link below the video for that. Here is our solar eclipse. Let me get to the next page. There we go. We have this solar eclipse. There's the new and the full moon at the 21st degree of Libra. This solar eclipse, it's conjunct Mercury. It is conjunct the South Node. Remember, I said South Node is heavily featured during this eclipse cycle. It is square Pluto once again. Pluto is having some conversations. And during this particular one, we have an opposition to Chiron. All the outer planets are pretty much all retrograde. All the inner planets are direct. So Saturn's retrograde, Pluto's direct, but it just would have come out of retrograde. Neptune, Chiron, Jupiter, Uranus, all retrograde. So what we have going on here as we continue on our season of heavy duty manifestation moving into next year is when the outer planets are retrograde in this way, there are opportunities to restructure our outer world. When the inner planets are retrograde, Mercury, Mars, Venus, we are restructuring our inner world. So because the outer planets are retrograde, as we move into the solar eclipse on October 14th of 2023, this is basically the 3D catching up with our internal changes from the spring. The solar eclipse once again represents new beginnings. This is an earth sign, heavy solar eclipse season where there's lots of occupation in earth signs from the different planets. Because we have lots of earth energy, again, just to echo the theme, lots of shifting in our third dimension that is going to be a reflection of changes to our personality that unfolded during the spring. Same way when you conceive an idea or you conceive a baby, your body changes, your world changes to accommodate that newness. Here too is the mirror for that analogy. With the conjunction to the South Node, there is an element of the past coming into the present, specifically past relationships, because we're dealing in the sign of Libra here. And it's an energy of reflection, review, reconsidering. There's almost something here that speaks to the passage of time as well, like how long certain things have been going on, or how long certain relationships may have been in your life, or how long you may have been a particular way, and coming to terms with, okay, I'm ready to be different in partnership and relationship. How long you may have been in a relationship that didn't work, that you've outgrown, and now you're clear. I'm ready to start afresh, start anew, solar eclipse, new beginning. Or a long engagement with a solar eclipse like this could turn into a proposal, or not a proposal, it could turn into a marriage, or a long relationship can turn from a proposal to an engagement in this kind of energy. There's a nostalgic vibe to this, especially because we have a sextile to Juno. Like I said, there's a romance nostalgic vibe to it with Juno just behind this particular new moon and solar eclipse. There's there's this review vibe to it. And what may happen here is a new cycle with an old person, given the Chiron influence on this. There's a growth element and aspect to it, an awareness of where we have grown and what growth we need to lean into. And so as we're moving toward this, there's a bit of a like calling on the carpet of ourselves when it comes to partnerships and relationships as well. Like, where am I really? I think I'm over there, but am I really that evolved? I think I'm ready for love, but am I really? I think I'm ready for this divorce and to start life anew on my own, but am I really that kind of thing? What Chiron is bringing up is an opportunity for that self-reflection, who we've been in relationship, and giving us an opportunity to hit our personal internal reset buttons. Chiron deals with wounds, but Chiron also deals with wisdom. Once we have accepted the truth of who we are and where we're at, especially in the sign of Aries. The deal with Chiron is that Chiron was different than all the other centaurs and all the other gods on Mount Olympus. He didn't fit in either camp or category, and he certainly wasn't human. And so, because of this, the Chiron story is rife with rejection and abandonment. And when we see Chiron speaking to the moon or the sun in a person's natal chart, we tend to get a lot of sensations of not enoughness, or feeling abandoned, or emotionally feeling a sense of lack because people just didn't connect when you were growing up. With this Chiron speaking to the solar eclipse, there is a calling on the carpet of where we have allowed our woundedness to get in the way of our ability to connect with other people. This is a huge opportunity to step into our uniqueness and really own, yeah, I am a little different. Yeah, there's something about me that's not like the other kids. Yep, and there's something really brilliant in the make, build, and design of God's special creation. That is me. And in that, really giving yourself that permission to own, yeah, I'm sort of different in this area, and owning your uniqueness, there's real wisdom and opportunity for leadership in the arena of relationship, if for no one else but ourselves. And so giving yourself that permission to say, hey, yeah, there's something special about me, instead of looking at as something wrong with you, is what this solar eclipse is going to give us an opportunity to do. Okay. There's also going to be some awareness with this of where we haven't grown, where we've really used some of our wounds as crutches for why we don't have what we want, where we've really started to, say, like, get into the wound story. Well, it was like this when I grew up, and then so and so did this to me, and then so and so did that to me, and this is why I just can't love, and I'm going to be alone forever, K Moon. No, knock it off. What happened to you isn't who you are. Do not conflate your identity with your experience. They're two different things. That's why there's two different words for them. So, this particular solar eclipse is really going to highlight where that conflation has happened and show you maybe you can be bigger than your story. Maybe you can, with Mercury in the mix, tell yourself, thought and communication, a new story. Yeah. Huge opportunity for a reset in who you are and the story you're living in partnership. And I like to see that, especially with Pluto in the mix. Once again, we have this thematic of permanent ending. We can have wound or we can have wisdom, but you're going to have to choose. You can't sit here and wallow in everything is wrong for me, but also expect your life to operate from a place of strength. At some point, you have to choose to rise. Okay, I love that. Very growth oriented, and it's sort of like a little check-in. Are we, again, are our feet pointed in the direction that we intend to go and grow? If not, it's time to kind of make some changes. Okay. So I like that one. There is let's close out. Oh, of course. Let me pause this video and get all of my charts back up. My app crashed one moment. Okay. Now we will have a look at the lunar eclipse taking place on March 24th at the 5th degree of Libra. This is the only lunar eclipse in the cycle, guys. So this is a closing eclipse, full moon, and lunar eclipse. So it's a major closing. All right. Just move that out of the way. What we have going on here, let's just change that color. Here's our full moon at the 5th degree of Libra. This full moon and lunar eclipse is trine to Pluto. So this is the first time we're seeing Pluto play a far more supportive role rather than bringing up an aspect of tension and choices. This is more an aspect of flow, and that flow can go either way. I'll explain what I mean by that in a minute. We've also got a sextile to Pallas as well. So, other than that, this particular lunar eclipse is relatively unaspected. We've got a conjunction to the Shaman's asteroid here. And so with the Shaman's asteroid in the mix, this is a conversation specifically about growth and how we're growing and the journey we have been on and the lessons that we have learned. This is a moment of integrating those lessons. Pluto, as I mentioned earlier, deals specifically with endings, completions of the permanent nature. Once the caterpillar has become a butterfly, it cannot go back to being a caterpillar. It is not possible. And so, with Pluto in the trine aspect to this particular lunar eclipse and the full moon, what the trine specifically is basically, it's an aspect of harmony, but the harmony is one that just brings the energy of the aspecting planet straight smack into contact with the planet that it's touching. And so with Pluto being in direct contact with the moon, it's bringing more of its transformative energy, and it's a permanent type of transformation that we'll see with this lunar eclipse at the very beginning of next year or the beginning of 2024. There is a closing in this. Again, with the focus being North Node in Aries, there's a lot of self-growth, a lot of personal development, a lot of, okay, where am I going? What am I doing? Why am I doing it? Focused here with the North Node, and really a deepening of what it is, who we are, and what we're up to in a way that allows for our lives to then begin to shift to catch up. So this is another major shift point, another major manifestation point. If there's something you've wanted to end or to close, this particular lunar eclipse is the one to do it. Because there was so much new beginning energy with the previous eclipses before this particular eclipse is a little bit like, it's like holdover energy, like the dregs of the last of the last. It's like last call on whatever it is you're trying to close out. So dotting I's, crossing T's, putting to bed, final pieces of a cycle that you've outgrown. With Pluto in this position during this time frame, I do see many of you who have been looking for new jobs, new career directions, promotions, and the process has either been messy or indirect, or you're trying to get into a new industry, but it's like there are a lot of doors closed. Sometimes they open, sometimes they close, sometimes you drag back to what you used to be doing. Pluto getting into Aquarius and then harmoniously aspecting the lunar eclipse during this cycle is actually going to support you in making the final leap into what it is you want to do career-wise, since Pluto was dealing in Capricorn, specifically having to do with career. However, the thing to understand about this is, again, there are certain relationships and partnerships that are not going with you where you are headed. And so it'll be really important to have the skill and the awareness to cross a bridge without needing to burn it. One of the things, I mean, I definitely see in some of this, for some of you, this could be completion of a marriage or a partnership, dissolution of a business partnership, or dissolution of a marriage in this energy. That is certainly possible. One of the things I see people do a lot before they end a relationship that they have outgrown is, instead of acknowledging that the relationship was what it needed to be for the time in which it was, they attempt either couples therapy, or they will attempt trying to work it out or grow together in some kind of way, as if somehow, some way, one or the other of them has maybe done something that can be, if they just changed their behavior, then we could go back to the way things were. Lacking the discernment to understand, I've just outgrown this, as opposed to actually we're lacking some tools. And if we have the tools, then we can continue to grow together. Lacking the discernment between the two is, I have found, one of the most damaging things to a person in their self-concept in relationship. Because when you know within yourself, I have outgrown this and this is done for me, but then you allow another person to believe that they have a shot or a chance if they just grow in certain ways, it really dishonors that the other person has their own life path, their own growth journey, where they're headed. And it also really dishonors yourself in allowing you to be a person who can evolve. Thirdly, it dishonors that, what you brought to the table and what they're bringing to the table, because that's a game that they're hoping they can win, that frankly, they never will, because you already knew you outgrew it. There's a need, especially with this lunar eclipse, as we come to it in March. We're going to feel it as early as January, some of us. There's a real need to have that level of honesty with yourself and with other people, to know this isn't something we can get more tools and fall back in love around. I've outgrown, I can't go back to being a caterpillar, and you can't go back to being whatever it was you used to be. We are now two different people. We've outgrown this. we can either decide to see if we like and love who we've grown into, or we can let this go and let each other find better matches. And so this lunar eclipse is going to really call us on the carpet around that, and ask us to step into the maturity of understanding we don't need to try and get someone to be something different when we already know there's no shape that they can be that's going to fit with us given who we've become. Yeah. So yeah, it's going to be sobering when it comes to love, especially because during this particular lunation, Saturn and Venus are conjunct in the sign of Pisces. There's going to be a lot of emotional truth that will come up and out for us, and will be irrepressible with Mars and Pisces as well. So yeah, being authentic. Once again, North Node Aries, the demand upon all of us is to lean into what is our truth, who are we in our uniqueness. Let's be honest about this. Let's understand who we are as individuals. And because there's this kind of clearing of the decks, knowing what's coming in the upcoming solar eclipses, this is very intentional. Some of you during this season are going to be invited to release a partnership that you've outgrown, because the 2 solar eclipses coming after this are a gear up for a new permanent partnership that will align with who you've become. But you'll miss that if you're hanging out and lying to yourself over here at this particular closing eclipse. So wanted to make sure that I gave it to you as straight as I could, that there's a completion here. And for some of you, you may stay together in your relationship or marriage. I'm not saying you have to get divorced, but there will be a completion to who you used to be, and a need to embark upon taking time to learn who each other is now and love each other who and where you're at now in ways that honor you both now, instead of trying to get something back that is long dead and gone. Okay. So that is the lunar eclipse on March 25th of 2024. It is definitely a season of relationship closing. And if not the closing of a partnership, certainly the closing of a pattern in a partnership that you may have outgrown. Okay, let's get into the next one. Put this over here. Okay, so we have a solar eclipse coming right after this, and this is the solar eclipse on April 8th at the 19th degree of Aries. So this is a new beginning, and it's definitely the new beginning of like a major relationship cycle. So I'll show you guys now. It's going to be a healing cycle, and the healing cycle is going to set the stage for the partnership energy that's going to come in with the last eclipse of the season of this eclipse cycle. So let's move that out of the way. Here is our Aries solar eclipse at the 19th degree of Aries. It is conjunct Chiron. It is conjunct the North Node. And it is also conjunct Mercury. So there's a lot of consciousness energy moving here. In addition to this, we are having a conversation with, let me just make sure I have it. It's loose, but it's there. We've got a conversation going on with Venus. And once again, like all of our other lunations, we've got Mars kicking it in a water sign. Last eclipse and this eclipse, it was Pisces. So there's a lot of altruistic self-investment energy in this solar eclipse. Like, this is the solar eclipse where if you did the work of completing a cycle at the lunar eclipse just before this one on March 25th, so it's within weeks of this, This solar eclipse with Chiron sitting in the mix and the North Node and Mercury sitting there, this particular solar eclipse is inviting us into a deep healing process around our identity, who we are, who we're not, who we're trying to become, why. This solar eclipse is allowing us to get grounded in our personalized truth about ourselves in relationship and the wisdom of what we've learned and where we've been in partnership and relationship. It's about taking that wisdom from what we've learned and then using it as a leverage point to work our way out of the cocoon we may have been in so that and spread our butterfly wings. This is the beginning of the rebirth of this cycle. Okay. So while we had some closing and completion and death energy just behind this with the previous solar and one lunar eclipse, this is an emergent energy. This is where the resurrection really starts to take place. And we see the resurrection energy come in. We've got a sextile to Chariklo in this energy. And Chariklo represents that energy of kind of like guardian angelship or intercessory intervention from those who would like to see us do well, either our ancestors or passed on loved ones. Chariklo represents that energy of them coming into the mix and saying, just tell me what you want and I will help you grow in that direction. So I love to see this because this is for anyone who may have experienced a significant relationship ending during the lunar eclipse. This solar eclipse is going to put you on a path of really feeling like you can trust yourself, trust life, and trust that God's got you through this process of change, growth, transformation, and emergence into your new self. Okay. You may feel a little tender with Chiron sitting so distinctly conjunct this particular solar eclipse. I can imagine just like a newborn baby emerging from the womb may feel like there's a lot, the stimulation is just a lot to take in. Newly single people, we've all been there at some point, sometimes feel very tender in the weeks following a recent split. I imagine a butterfly emerging from the cocoon may feel a little bit tender with its new wings. This particular solar eclipse is going to, in that tenderness, really teach us how to love ourselves, how to appreciate ourselves, how to take care of and encourage ourselves, and how to lean into our personalized ambition with everything we have going on. Okay. So I like this one. It is a reset point in our internal self. The thing that the more and more, I go in my own spiritual development, it's become exceedingly clear to me that our lives are held up by our life force energy. We are the nexus point by which all dimensions interconnect. And so because they all connect within us, the cleaner we can keep an internal house and the clearer we can stay about who we are and what we want, the more powerful we become in our capacity as divine creator beings incarnate, made in the image of the divine, to facilitate whatever outcome we choose to experience in our lives, to really align with the dreams God's placed in our hearts. And so this particular solar eclipse is giving us the opportunity with that clean slate from the last two, the solar and the lunar eclipses, that clearing of the decks. This solar eclipse is allowing us to start to walk into a new world. Many of you guys know that movie or Disney story, The Little Mermaid, where she finally gets her feet and she's able to walk on land and she sings a song about being in a whole new world. This solar eclipse is going to facilitate your eyes being open in a new way to who you are and what's possible for you and what dimensions you're traveling in as you get the opportunity to shift, pick new timelines with this. So it's an exciting solar eclipse. All right. And then we have the final one of the cycle, and it is once again a solar eclipse. This one hanging out with the South Node. So it's bringing in some past energy mixed with new energy. And this one is where we get, if a relationship is what you've been trying to manifest, this is when we get some solidification. So we've got a new moon solar eclipse on October 2nd at 2:46 p.m. And we have this particular new moon solar eclipse taking place at the 10th degree of Libra. It is conjunct Juno. It is conjunct Mercury, Lilith, the Shaman's asteroid, and the South Node. Ooh la la, it's a lot going on right there. And this particular solar eclipse has new romantic relationship and partnership written all over it, all over it in so many ways. We've got passion coming in from Venus trine Mars. We've got support coming in from Jupiter trine Juno. That's husband and wife right there. Harmonious aspects from both, passion in the third dimension and then soul connection in, the spiritual realms. Then we also have Mercury bringing communication, Lilith insisting on our authenticity, the Shaman's asteroid saying, yes, I've grown. Yes, I know the lesson. I have fully integrated. I'm ready for something new. And the South Node bringing a very specific vibe to this that has to do with bringing the past into the present. So this could be a new relationship that in one form or fashion has you bringing in the lessons you've learned from your past into the present, coming into it much stronger. This could be a new relationship with someone you knew from before. This could, hopefully not this, but it could certainly also be a repeating pattern from an old relationship with somebody new. Hopefully, you're not repeating patterns. You've got what you needed, you've grown. But it could also be getting a second chance with someone who reminds you of someone from your past, but is definitely somebody new. But so it's getting a second chance to be a new version of you when the old version of you maybe have sabotaged the older relationship. The new version of you is getting the opportunity to do a brand new thing. Now, for some of you, this could even be a past life love. South Node is a portal coming in for reset and second chance and renewal in this lifetime. Either way, with Jupiter in the mix, there's a ton of opportunity for growth. With Venus and Mars in the conversation they're in water signs to boot, there's a lot of passion and chemistry here as well. I like to see it. It looks pretty positive overall. And so this particular eclipse cycle, as I mentioned, it's heavy on relationship renewal, starting with changing ourselves first, because when we change, the entirety of our lives can change. If you're trying to change your life without changing yourself, this is how you end up repeating cycles, right? Nothing in us has changed. So we're just bringing the same patterns to a new day. We have to change on the inside in order to get stuff to truly change on the outside. And this eclipse cycle, the Aries-Libra eclipse cycle, is giving us all of the tools, all of the resources, all of the opportunity in the internal and the external world to create those changes for ourselves in order to get in completely new patterns and cycles in partnerships. So I'm wishing us all the best with this. It's going to be a very significant cycle. We'll all be able to look back and see that the early 2020s was when everything changed in relationship for us. And now you're forewarned, so that means you are forearmed with what to do. We're still closing out the last little bit here of the Scorpio and Taurus eclipse cycle, which I did not do one of these updates for. I will not be doing one of these updates for it, but we'll move forward into the Pisces and Virgo eclipse cycle pretty quickly inside of 2024, and I'll provide one of these updates for that. Okay, beloved, link to this table of eclipses and the new and the full moon dates that I have been using over here to calculate all of this, and the specific dates and times will all be below this video in the description box. If you've got questions about this for you and you're like, okay, but what does this mean for me, given where I personally am at in relationship? Now is the time to book your eclipse reading. I definitely have space available before we get into some of the major manifestation energy of 2024, because it's going to be big. There's a lot of major love transits in 2024 that you'll be able to take advantage of to call in the kind of love you want. But it does start now with making choices to place our feet in the direction we intend to go. My booking info is in the description box, kmoonastro.com. If you just want to look at the eclipse cycle only, a 30-minute reading is absolutely more than enough. But if you need to look at things beyond the eclipse cycle and more than just love, you need to look at money or housing or relocation or job and career stuff as well, then I recommend you do a 1-hour reading. I've had a lot of people only book 30 minutes, realize how fast 30-minute goes, and then end up just rebooking and wish they had just, they sometimes even email me and say, hey, can I extend? And I have to say, I'm sorry, today's been booked for a week or more. You'll have to book another time. So if you know that you need the full hour, give it to yourself. That's my advocacy for you. But if you only want to talk about eclipses and relationships, that's it. 30 minutes is definitely enough. kmoonastro.com. And I look forward to chatting with you. Take great care and bye for now.